Monero Talk is sponsored by Cake Wallet, a trustless, open source wallet that gives you the keys to your crypto. Invoice, donate, and trade your Monero with peace of mind, piece of cake. And by StealthEX, an instant exchange where privacy is a top concern. Go to stealthex.io to instantly exchange between Monero and 450 plus assets without having to create an account or register and with no limits, making StealthEX a simple way to purchase Monero with crypto anonymously. Monero Talk is also made possible from contributions by viewers and listeners like you, and supporting us is easier than ever by typing in monerotalk.crypto in your monero.com or Cake Wallet send address field to send us a tip.
Juan, can you hear me? What's up, man? How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. Good. Yeah, excited to have you. This is cool.
Nice to finally talk. I've been seeing you around for a long time, and you know, Monero Talk is a very popular show among Monero people. I've been hearing about it forever, so it's good to be here, man.
Have you ever caught an episode? Did you ever see we've had Peter Todd on here? I was checking out some of your stuff. I've seen Peter. You've done a couple of things with Peter Todd, some old ones too. Very cool.
Actually, man. Peter Todd was the first person I ever interviewed on video.
I went to your oldest video first. I was like, let me see what this guy was doing back in the day. I was like, oh shit, Peter Todd.
Lowest quality video. It was like the video was super wobbly because I was just like holding with my hand the microphone in the other. So I
was just listening to it. I was just listening to it on 2x because I was driving home. I was like, all right. And it was proof of work versus proof of stake from 10 years ago. You guys were having that discussion.
2016 debate. Yeah, proof of work. Yeah. Satoshi Nakamoto, who would have thought,
All right. Your first interview.
First interview.
I know. I was thinking that too, but
fantastic,
I wish that would be amazing if he's Satoshi Nakamoto. The stories I could tell. I'd be like, I was part of that story, we had, not to go too far off kilter, but I was just thinking of this. We had a Monero after party here in New York in 2018. It was after a Bitcoin conference, and we made it a super secret party where we didn't reveal the location. It was in New York City, and you had to pay for the event with Monero, and then you had to attach your email address to the Monero transaction using the what's now the deprecated. What did it used to be called? It was just the
return field or something.
Yeah, I forget the name of what the field was, but it used to be there. It's been since deprecated, and we had people putting their email addresses, attaching it, right, encrypting it, and putting their email in. So if you look back on the Monero blockchain, Satoshi Nakamoto's email address can be found on the Monero blockchain. If Peter Todd is in fact Satoshi Nakamoto. So what's going on, man? Give me some background. I don't really know all that much about you. I just know you're an OG that's interviewed Peter Todd. Sounds like you've been on it from the early days. So yeah, give us your background.
Yeah, I mean, well, I started in 2014 professionally working for Bitcoin Magazine. I started writing about all kinds of different technologies. I've always been interested in the privacy dimension. I kind of missed the Monero pump, but I was hearing about it while it was happening. But I got early into I got in 2014. The word maximalism didn't exist, Vitalik invented it not long after, right? And I got to see sort of the birth of Ethereum out of Toronto. And I got in through Bitcoin through sort of the libertarian analysis of Bitcoin. So I was Bitcoiner from the beginning, but then Ethereum happened and then Dash came along. And Dash was interesting from the privacy perspective, but it was a little weird. And then, Monero started kind of getting the attention that it deserved. And I saw Monero sort of rise as the top privacy coin. I think eventually it settled as the top privacy coin. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of reporting since 2014. I saw Bitcoin Magazine, Cointelegraph. I did a bunch of YouTube interviews. I've had a podcast for a long time. I've done a lot of trading and kind of like private consultancy with people about just civilians, teaching them how to set up self-custody and like navigate this space and stuff. And in the fork wars, a lot of people sort of kind of saw me. I took like I interviewed Roger Ver before the fork war, and then I took the small block size sort of position afterwards. And, like that was kind of like the biggest sort of Juan Galt is a maximalist sort of flashpoint. And there I got into a lot of fights with Monero people and Bitcoin Cash people who have sort of merged. Seems like there's a lot of Bitcoin Cash people.
Yeah, there's Monero, a lot of they're united.
Yeah. So there's some people in your audience right now cursing at me, but that's okay. We'll be friends. And so then, obviously it's been a few years since then. I've kind of like, there's a time where I consider myself a maximalist. I haven't considered myself a maximalist for a long time. I consider myself a shitcoin minimalist. The less shitcoins, the better.
Yeah, right? You do have the laser eyes. You do have the laser eyes.
I have the laser eyes.
But now, so do you lose the laser eyes once you hit 100,000? Is that like the deal? Like everybody's gonna drop the laser eyes?
In theory, yeah. But
or do they just get more intense at that point?
Yeah, they just get. It's just two big flashy balls. It's just too, like there's no face anymore.
Oh my god! So were you one of the early laser eyes guys?
I mean, I got on that trend. I wrote it at some point.
Oh man, it's funny because so we basically both got in around the same time. We have like a similar, trajectory. Yeah. Like 2014, we both discovered crypto.
Yeah.
I feel like you're the Colombian version of me, man. Except that you went BTC Maxi, I went Monero, right? It was
right.
Like what do you so what is your viewpoint of Monero now these days? Where do you?
So I mean, I've had this position for a while now. I think for like maybe 3 years, and it's that on its own, like if you analyze it on its own, it's pretty good technology. Like it's definitely got privacy technology that we wish we had in Bitcoin. I think the trade-offs are very uncomfortable for some people, at least the perceived trade-offs, right? Like the limitations that it puts on being able to verify the supply at the same, let's say, accuracy that you can with Bitcoin. I know that there's some arguments as to how you could verify the supply in Monero, even with its current sort of, encrypted amounts and such. But that makes people uncomfortable. The hard fork needs make people uncomfortable. But I think the technology is obviously quite good. In fact, somebody was taking a hit at me for, let's say, supporting Blockstream, right? And this person doesn't on the Twitter comments, like, this guy doesn't know the story. And I think a lot of people don't know the story. And I'm going to be giving a speech in part about some of these sort of historical details. But Adam Back creates Blockstream because he realizes that he can't get encrypted amounts into Bitcoin because Bitcoin is really hard to change. So Adam Back invents a kind of sort of or creates a anonymization scheme similar to Monero's, tries to get it into Bitcoin.
He created confidential transactions, right?
That's right, confidential transactions.
And then
right?
and Monero adopted it.
Exactly. So Adam Back invents this scheme, more or less, right? Builds it. I'm not sure if he invented the cryptography or anything, but he puts it together in order to break better price to Bitcoin. Goes to Core. Core is like, well, it's good, but it has these trade-offs and it's difficult and changing Bitcoin is hard. And so he's like, well, given that it's not easy to change it, I'm just going to create Blockstream. So you can go and use the technology and then have a bridge or such. So literally Blockstream is created with the ideals of Monero, just a different implementation, right? I think that's important for people to recognize. The second thing is nobody uses Blockstream, right? Like Liquid anyway. Nobody uses the Liquid network. It's very, very low liquidity. It's gaining liquidity now, I think, because of various reasons. But for the most part, people that think that Blockstream was a takeover of Bitcoin, sorry, they didn't take over much. Nobody really has used it much. So, but anyway, so that's sort of that's kind of where I'm at. It's Monero has very good technology, and it would be great if it could, I like it as a sort of I like what it represents. I don't see it as, I don't think it has the same fundamentals. It doesn't have the same investment argument that Bitcoin has, and I don't think that's going to change for a long time. Bitcoin would have to kind of like break down in a very catastrophic way that doesn't also apply to Monero, for Monero to really take that sort of investment grade asset sort of quality. And so, you know, in my opinion, it's a great privacy tool if you can use it properly, which is not easy no matter how good the technology is, right? Like there's a lot of ways to lose your privacy, but you know, I think I'd be lying if I said that there's a lot of Bitcoiners, including myself, that wish we had maybe higher privacy on chain in Bitcoin. And it's a real shame that we haven't been able to get that, you know?
Yeah. What do you think of the fact that basically those that do need those that are actually trying to transact in a digital cash-like manner are choosing Monero and they're not choosing Bitcoin? Do you think that's an indicator that Bitcoin might be flawed in some way, and perhaps Monero's value proposition is just in being a better form of digital cash for actual transactional purposes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know I don't know what the statistics are. I would like to see data, you know, like I would like to see this from a data-driven perspective. I bet you if we actually look at the numbers, the reality is probably Tether has more adoption than both Bitcoin and Monero.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
That's the reality as far as crypto.
Yeah, but is that digital cash usage? I mean, are those people, you know, caring whether their transactions are being surveilled or not?
I mean, so the fiat cash is a bearer asset with a centralized issuer that can manipulate the price. So it's kind of like a bearer asset security that's considered currency, right? So is Tether, you know. The physical dollars have an ID. The crypto dollars have an ID. The physical dollars, they get analyzed macro when they enter banks and leave banks, and then they do sort of KYC. Or if you go and deposit, there's some KYC process. Or if you withdraw, there's some KYC process. But in the wild, the KYC, the analytics that is done on them is sort of loose. So
I'm just saying, like,
Tether, right?
Nobody's using Tether on like the dark markets, right? For people that are actually trying to make digital.
You're talking about the dark market. You're talking about buying like illegal stuff on the internet, right?
I'm talking about whether it's illegal. Like people go on XMR Bazaar, which we run, which is completely legal. It's clear net, right? But they're looking to transact in a digital cash-like manner, not to sell illegal things, but to sell legal things, because there is a benefit to that, right? There is a market for that. People that want to transact privately. Right. So I don't see Tether. Tether's not being used for those purposes. Right?
So
nobody's going on a dark market to buy to pay for things with Tether. I don't think, unless I could be at a.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scope of that conversation is very narrow within the Monero world, right? So, like, I'll give you an example. If in Colombia, according to peer-to-peer like OTC people that have been doing it for years in Colombia, something like maybe 30% of the money that goes from Colombia to China to buy goods that get sold back in retail here moves through Tether.
Wow.
And what do? This sort of resellers, this sort of retail sellers, they grab like bags of cash that they get from selling stuff, and they go to like this street in Bogota, and they're like, and the street is like a bunch of exchange houses with like the Tether logo on it, and they're like, hey, here's a bunch of cash. Please turn it into crypto dollars and send it to this address. This address is a wallet from a Taiwanese bank, I think, or Thailandese bank. Thailand bank gets the money, flips it for yuan, ships it to yuan bank. The bank approves the transfer, and within a day cycle, the goods are in a boat coming back to Colombia. That's cut like 30%. This is
really Where are these tether terminals? They're all over the world.
They're currency exchange houses. So they're like forex fiat exchange houses that support Tether. Okay. And according to chain analysis. To chain analysis, of the maybe 5-10% of people that use crypto in Colombia, 70% use Tether.
What are the fees like? So if you're bringing cash to one of these things, how much? What's like the conversion rate?
So the conversion rate in Colombia is like the official forex rate set daily by the the trade rate. That's sort of set by the federal bank, like the central bank, as like the intraday rate for Forex is like, let's say right now, 4,400 pesos per dollar. The street price is usually 300 pesos under. So it'd be like 4,100 right now. So the spread is in there. Somewhere in there is the spread that they make. So, you know, Colombia has a very unique sort of market because of that. Like you can get very cheap Bitcoin here for many reasons. Yeah, so I think that's sort of, they just take a piece of the spread, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got 100 live viewers, guys. Like and share. We got Juan on here hanging out. I'm meeting him for the first time. I feel like we're twins in the crypto realm. from 2014, we'll be meeting at Monerotopia, which is really awesome. Juan's a little bit more of a Bitcoin maximalist, and perhaps I'm a little bit more of a Monero maximalist, if you really had to simplify us. So I think this is a great conversation, man. I mean, you've obviously you've thought about all these things very deeply. You've been talking to the most sophisticated minds in the space. So
one among them, Body Anarchist, who I believe was part of your show for a while. He's an old friend of mine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I've got, as you know, with Body Anarchists many times. Many times.
Wow, there's no greater Monero person to be engaging and debating with than Body. So like, you've heard it all
with him for years.
You have heard it. There's nothing for me to even say then, man. Like, Jesus. so I guess your ultimate criticism of Monero is the Peter Todd criticism of you can't as easily audit the chain in a trustless way where everybody has access to easily audit.
Yeah, I don't know let's say the depth of that argument. You know, I know that it's like there's ways, right. But I would say that that's like an issue. The other issue is that for some reason the powers that be don't like, I mean, for obvious reasons, that they don't like Monero, right? They're pushing the exchanges to ban it.
Yeah, that's the other question I wanted to get at to you next was like, what do you think about that fact, right? Like, why is Monero enemy number one? Does that make you more interested in it? But go ahead.
It definitely does. It gives me it to me, it makes it's proof that it works, you know? Like, you wouldn't fuck with it at that level if it didn't work, you know? And so I think I like that. I think that's proof. I think that if Bitcoin lost its crown, I would rather see Monero take the crown. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, Monero is the heir to the throne. But I don't know if the throne will ever go away. I don't know if Bitcoin will ever lose the crown. So I think the emission auditing question is tricky, right? There's other questions like scalability, right? Like, how much can you scale it, right? Because like, Bitcoin is sort of managing to scale off chain, and while it's not perfect, like, you can argue there's like a 50x scaling through the Lightning Network with trade-offs, right? And then if you get into eCash, you basically get like perfect scalability with no self-custody, right? Which is like not a great trade-off, but at least you get the privacy and the scalability. So, but Monero is like, it's kind of contained within like an on-chain, and I would like to see like off-chain scaling with Monero. Like, if you guys get in the right scripts, maybe you could do some Lightning stuff as well. But so, you know, I have questions there on the scalability. I have questions on the auditability. But
man, you're gonna love Monerotopia, man. We're gonna get you on a stage. We'll get you up there with maybe we'll have Body up there. We get Arctic Mine, get Arctic Mine up there. Have you spoken to Arctic? You'll have good conversations with him.
I'm not sure. No, I don't know.
He's part of the Monero core team. He's always focused on scalability.
Okay.
He talks about it in a very intelligent way. But yeah, I mean, obviously Monero arguably is more scalable on chain than Bitcoin, with its dynamic block size, right? And so far, so good. I mean, in terms of what the actual demand is for the currency, it's keeping up with it, right? And as more people demand it, the price to transact actually goes down. So it encourages even more transactions. So it is
I've heard about the
scale
dynamic.
well in that sense.
Yeah, I've heard you guys have the dynamic block size and then have like an interesting fee sort of structure.
Yeah,
So
the fees essentially go down as more people use it. As more transactions go into a block, the blocks get larger. The fees go down per transaction.
Right. Yeah, like there's a lot of things you could hear, like sit down and we could like bike shit about, but I think at the end of the day, right, it's like I think what my speech is going to be about is like basically my value system is greater than Bitcoin maximalism. My value system is greater than Monero maximalism. My value system is I'm trying I admire their cypherpunks. I admire the sort of the crypto anarchists sort of let's use technology to defend our civil rights, because the government, if we need the government to defend our rights, then it's too late because they're not going to give them to us, right?
Let's build unstoppable tools, right?
Let's build technology that defends us in spite of whatever the government does, and then yes, we can I think it's okay to try to push the government and politics in the direction of aligning with our values, but we need to definitely use technology to defend them, because otherwise we're going to be just left waiting, right? And that's just not going to work. So yeah, I think we have to kind of like take a step back, and get kind of look honestly at some of these sort of narratives, right, that have kind of like created this tribalism, and be like, you know what? I think we're all kind of on the same boat, and we're sort of we're bike shedding about details. And at the end of the day, to the statists that want to enslave us, we're the same people, we're the same.
No, I mean, and then we get stronger. The larger that crowd gets, the stronger we get, right? We need to grow the camp. What do you think about that? I mean, do you feel like that camp is smaller than ever, is growing? The digital cash camp, including like Monero people that care about it in Bitcoin, because I mean the Michael Saylor camp is quite large these days, I'd say, in Bitcoin. But what would you say? How is the crypto anarchy doing in Bitcoin world? Is it alive and well, or has it moved to Monero? Like a lot of people say, like those that really care about those values in Bitcoin end up just using Monero. But what's your take on that?
I mean, I think a lot of that is I think there's a lot of like ideological sort of utopian thinking all over crypto and all over the world in general, definitely within the anarchist world. And I think the question that I'm going to ask at the conference, and I'll ask it now so people start mulling it over, is what do you think success looks like? What does success for us look like? And I've asked this question of anarchists before, and I've never really gotten a good answer, right? Like, do you want Monero to be a sort of fringe currency with a minority piece of the pie forever? Or do you want it to be the global reserve currency, right? If you want it to be the global reserve currency, guess what? The value that would turn it into global reserve currency, it's in the banks, behind the walled gardens, right? In the control of the statist dragons. And that's where the gold is, right? And so to me, there's a bunch of people that are basically have a gun pointed to their head, including all the private banks, right? And including all the family offices and all the funds, and they have a gun to their head, and the gun is like, you're using our system, And Saylor there's two perspectives of Saylor. Perspective one is that he's Trojan horsing us by getting the Bitcoin into the walled garden. The other perspective is we're Trojan horsing fiat by getting Bitcoin into the walled garden, right?
Right.
I think our job is to make sure there's a big fucking hole in that wall. There's tunnels and there's bridges and there's like, drive-by extraction, fucking planes, whatever, right? We got to make sure people can exit the walled garden. That's our job as anarchists, as like, purists, right? But the walled garden will continue and the gold will probably stay in there to some degree or another. And if we want success, to me, success is like making sure the gold gets traded for Bitcoin or crypto, at least like not crypto, because fuck the word crypto, but like cypherpunk money, right? And we end up being able to access that liquidity, but use it on our own terms, right? And it's a difficult game, right? But I think at the end of the day, what Bitcoin was born to do is to sort of dethrone the central banks. And I don't think we're going to do that by staying outside of the game. I think the game is in there. So I think
yeah,
we
I
have
think
many
that's
tools to do it,
definitely,
you know?
yeah, I think that's definitely, I think where maybe one of the differences in thinking between Monero people and Bitcoiners that are, more big both cypherpunks, crypto anarchists, whatever, but different strategy. Because I do think in Monero land, like as you're asking me the question, like what is the goal, right? For me, the goal is like XMR Bazaar. It's me living off of Monero peer to peer with other individuals in our own circular economy. How big that economy gets, ideally, it gets as large as all digital cash users in the world, right? But the goal for me is to be able to live off of it among other Monero using people, because that's how we completely opt out of their system, right? So rather trying to integrate and change, step back, ignore, takes much less energy, and just collaborate within. I mean, all you need is enough people that have enough different skills, and you've built a global circular economy where people can live off of each other, right? Through their current system. That for me, I say would be like what I envision as the goal for like a digital cash crypto.
Yeah, and I want that too, and I live that, and I to some as much as I can, right? And it works with Bitcoin and it works with Tether. I don't really use Monero that often. I have some Monero. I use it sometimes, right? But like I think so far it's like there's deep enough cash markets. But I think that's part of it, right? Like if you want to use Monero, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. In fact, like in my personal strategies, like I have Bitcoin, and then I have like some shitcoins that I think have good fundamentals, and I don't talk about them publicly. And then I have a little bag of Monero, and then I have Tether to stabilize, to survive a dip. That's my strategy.
Okay.
And then I go and sell for cash, and like YOLO, because that's actually, and to me that's a non-ideological sort of approach, right?
Yeah.
I think mixing up ideology with investment strategies is not necessarily a great way to approach the problem, right? But I think it's good. Like, do you know if Monero is like keeping up with inflation, with US dollar inflation?
I mean, it's been pretty stable at 150, so
right,
interpret that as you will.
Right. So, do you hold like the majority of savings in Monero?
Yeah, I do.
Aside from like real estate, I guess, right? Like, because that's like usually big.
No, I don't hold real estate.
Right.
I don't hold any real estate.
Okay, so you're mostly Monero. Okay, good. So you use it as a store.
I mean, granted, I lost a large chunk of it in a boating accident, but if I hold anything other than dollars, it's a little bit of Monero. Yes.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I think there's two approaches. I can't remember who said this, but there's two ways to conquer the world. Like you sort of go over the system, right? And like you play the game better than the rest of them, or you go under the system and then like sort of become the culture, right? I guess it's sort of the way to do it. And I think there's different ways to do it. I don't have a problem with people doing the Monero. I just think there's like questions around investment strategy. To me, like I want us to become wealthy as fuck, like I want us to be like an economic powerhouse. And I think that's part of the game with Bitcoin, right? Like Bitcoin is sort of playing that game as well as other games. There's a bunch of like crypto anarchists inside of Bitcoin that I don't think, that, in my opinion, hasn't moved to Monero. Like there's a bunch of them in Monero, but there's a bunch of them inside of Bitcoin that are ready to like go to war with Saylor over self-custody, right? Like one of my tweets, like there's a recent sort of controversy again around Saylor because he said something like, "Oh, there's a bunch of paranoid crypto anarchists."
Yes, we use that that was the best advertisement we had thus far for Monerotopia conference. Was like a meme of him saying.
He just said something to go ahead if you want to recap that. But
no, I mean you must have been. I assume you were slapping your
yeah,
head.
It definitely pissed me off. And like I'm in a group with some of these people that are like actual, they're builders and they're crypto anarchists in my opinion. I don't know if they would identify as that, but they're practically that. They're building with cryptography tools that are like for individual liberty and all this stuff. Anyway, so and they started like memeing about it and yeah, I mean, I tweeted out like, crypto, like para-crypto anarchists are going to push a software that's going to improve self-custody and scale it further. And if Saylor gets in our way, he's going to get stung by 100,000 of us, right? Like it's 100,000 Bitcoiners. Like there's going to be a fucking war if he got in the way. And what happens? He folded within a week. He was like, whoa, I like self-custody. Self-custody is great. More self-custody, right? Because he's not going to, he can't, he doesn't want us as enemies, right? And I think there's enough Bitcoiners that are sort of hard about this stuff, right? That
but the fact is, most people aren't self-custody. I think there's, I mean, this is completely anecdotal, but I would say there's a larger percentage of Monero self-custodied than Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's right? harder to not self-custody Monero because it's not on any exchanges, but it's like yes. But if it was, no,
but that's a feature. That, right? That's a feature, not a bug, right? So it's forcing people to obtain Monero in KYC-free, anonymous ways, and to custody their own crypto and to use it peer-to-peer. So there's that. I guess my question is, what do you think? What would your response be to people who are like, well, but Bitcoin is co-opted? Right.
I think
if not will be. And that because of that, it's kind of, you could look at the number go up, but are you really obtaining the freedom that it promises, or has it been co-opted in such a way where it's defanged?
I think they're poorly informed and ideologically radicalized. I think that Bitcoin has enough tools to survive. I think there's, like, I know this personally, and I know a lot of people that just, like, we have about as much self-custody and sovereignty as you can squeeze out of this industry, right? I think that there's going to be people like most people that have Bitcoin are probably not self-custodying, but that's because there's sort of, big exchanges and such. If that was the case, if that technology was available to Monero in general, you'd probably see the same. In fact, when Binance was around with Monero, you probably had a larger amount of pool of Monero in Binance than out of it, right? I don't know, right? So, I mean, I think the people that think that it got co-opted, they're a little bit, I think that they're not nuanced enough. They're not seeing the picture as a whole. And, I think there's been a lot of narratives that have sort of pushed people out. But that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, go do the Monero thing, whatever, right? But I think my concern is investment, right? It's like a lot of my anarchist friends, I started talking about Bitcoin very early on. And when I turned around years later, it looked like there's nobody had fucking Bitcoin. It's like, you fuckers are broke. You could be rich. And if you're rich, you're way more effective than if you're broke, right? And so
I mean, that's it.
I think we got to play the game, right?
Yeah. I mean, but if you want to just look at it purely as like an investment, right? Like, which one is a better investment right now? I mean, Monero is highly undervalued, right? And we're seeing it getting delisted from basically every exchange. So there is this theory that the price will inevitably rise once it can no longer be manipulated. Because there's clear utility and usage there, and just through Metcalfe's law, right? Like the value of the network is increasing, and you're just not really seeing the true price reflected there. And then just in terms of growth potential, right? Monero is much smaller, right? It's much easier to 2x Monero's market cap than Bitcoin's, right? So if you're thinking purely as investment, which one could I potentially make more money off of? I think there's a lot of arguments to be made for Monero too at this point in time.
I think you're probably right that it is undervalued, but I think there's a question of sort of liquidity, right? So if you look at Bitcoin's history, right? First, it started in a peer-to-peer market, right? Like literally people just trading it in trust within a forum, right? And then it's sort of the first exchange happened, and a bunch of them blew up, and then the exchanges to like crawl out of the woodwork, right? And then eventually you got the first sort of regulated one, which I guess was Coinbase, right? And that was like, it's all retail investment. Like institutions can't get in at all, but the price
they never added Monero. They never listed Monero ever.
Yeah.
Not even delist.
They've been sellouts since the beginning, right?
Yeah.
But like, okay, you guys had Kraken and such, right? But basically, like, again, like the money is behind the wall in a walled garden, and like there's peasants outside of the wall that have some gold and silver coins and copper, right? And they started buying Bitcoin, right? And Monero, right? Whatever. But if you want the price to go up, it has to get bid, it has to get bought. And who are going to buy it? Well, the money eventually has to either exit the walled garden, or Big Monero has to enter the walled garden, right? And so if the doors, like, you know what I mean? Like, the door is getting smaller for Monero. It's going P2P. You guys are going to have to build really hard P2P. And I think that's the way anyway. I think we need to build really strong P2P stuff, right? But like, if you don't have like an ETF, right, you don't get the big door, right? So you can't get the sort of horses of gold, going through, right?
But the ETF isn't new digital cash users, right? Each person that's buying into an ETF, you have it going up in fiat value, but you're not getting new users on your network that are actually using your network. You're getting speculators, investors that are speculating on the network. You're not getting new actual users, right? So like the growth in users with Monero is slower, yes, and you're seeing it as more difficult because it's peer-to-peer, but you're growing what is ultimately the value proposition of crypto, which is a peer-to-peer digital cash network. And it may in fact be the only way you can grow something like that, for it to actually maintain itself as a peer-to-peer digital cash network, is a way of thinking about it.
No, I hear you. And I think this is sort of one of the, let's say, deeper debates within the industry, is like digital cash versus digital gold, right? And this digital gold narrative is like, it makes me cringe as much as probably the audience, right? But I think that if you zoom out, and if you look at the stats, and if you look at the reality, currency adoption, right? When you say digital cash, you're talking about like using it as a currency day-to-day stuff, right?
Yeah, people that don't want their transactions to be using it like cash, but in digital form, right?
Right. So digital cash means using it as currency, right? And the reality is, it's very difficult to become a new currency, like incredibly difficult. Like, Bitcoin has been trying for 15 years and the adoption is negligible, right? Like the actual currency adoption, right? There's a bunch of ways that I can spend it. I can go to like Bitrefill and such and buy gift cards and this and that. There's like a deep peer-to-peer market where I can go get cash and trade. But like, to actually go spend, we actually need to get the corporations in, basically, because the corporations manage most of the trade. But like, okay, so from an adoption perspective, Bitcoin has failed for 15 years to gain like a majority throughout the world. I think in the United States it's probably worse. In Latin America it's probably deeper in certain sense. At least if you're talking about crypto assets, right? Again, Tether adoption has dominated, right? If you look at the facts, Tether's actually winning, right? And so it's very difficult to get currency adoption. I also think store of value is a use case. Like I believe that I'm using my Bitcoin by not touching it because it's growing in fiat terms, which is growing my purchasing power, which is making me more effective in the world. So I don't buy that store of value is not a use case. In fact, the white paper, to allude to the great constitution of Bitcoin, which has a bunch of issues in it, but the white paper, one of the things that it says is like, central banks can't be trusted with the money supply. There's a long history of devaluing the currency, and so we need to take that power away from them, more or less, is what it says, right? So escaping centralized devaluation of money is one of the use cases by Satoshi's sort of white paper.
When I think of that though, like my thought is like Monero is built to spend, and Bitcoin is built to store, right, and save. And fundamentally, I just don't see how it continues to self-perpetuate and maintain itself as a censorship-resistant, decentralized network when the incentive is to store and not use the network, right? And transaction fees go up sky high. Like the network loses its. Yeah, I mean, even Peter Todd talks about the potential of having to add a tail emission to Bitcoin, right? So like
Yeah.
Bitcoin is built to store, right? Like you're like say, like that's the you're telling me that's your primary use case, and I think a lot of other people think in those terms too. And so what are people effectively doing? They're not moving their Bitcoin. They're giving it up to custodians who could fiatize their Bitcoin, not you. You're holding your own coins. But these are potential issues, right? And then they're not transacting because the fees just go up higher as people actually go to transact, and because they're just storing and the value is going up. So you can't even use it as a daily currency. And I just don't see how it then continues to self-perpetuate if that's the incentive of the network.
So that's an interesting question. So I think that self-custody as a value of Bitcoin is actually the cornerstone of the whole thing. For example, right, like there's been this kind of lines of thought lately that like, well, maybe it's okay to like financialize it, and well, if we can't find a way to scale self-custody, because Hal Finney said you couldn't scale it on day 2, and so if we end up with private banks, like a private banking system, like Hal Finney said, then that'll be okay. And it's like, well, if we end up with a private banking system, because the Bitcoin on-chain fees are so high, and the scaling layer 2s don't work on a self-custody basis, right? So if we can't scale Lightning to the edges such that it is trust minimized and self-custody, right? Like if we can't build something like Phoenix Wallet, except the liquidity backend is any other liquidity provider, right? For example, right? Because Phoenix Wallet is non-cost, is self-custodial. Like you have 12 words. If they disappear, you can go take the words to Electrum and settle the transaction on chain, and you get your money back. So Lightning on Phoenix is self-custodial. It's not centralized, right? But the backend is attached to Phoenix, and it's sort of constrained to Phoenix. If we can't build something where you can point that to any backend, right, then okay, Lightning fails as a self-custody scaling mechanism, so we got to build other stuff. Arc is a new technology that's sort of been kind of tested on chain now in mainnet that lets you take it to the next level, right? So if we fail to scale self-custody, bottom line, then there's no reason to run a node, right? Like if Bitcoin is so expensive to use on a kind of bearer asset basis, such that I have to basically have a Bitcoin bank, then why the fuck am I going to run a node? Like maybe like some academics will run the nodes to like do auditing on the system, and then like maybe something will come from it. But the reality is, if I don't self-custody, I'm not running a node, because why would I do that? Why would I run a node to provide infrastructure for coins that are being held by a bank? Why am I paying a bank? Like, let them run. You know what I mean? So I think that breaks down one of the main motivations for hosting a node in Bitcoin. And if you're not running a node and you're not validating the supply, then you're basically not using it peer-to-peer. And so that erodes the whole narrative, right? So I'm a self-custody maximalist at this point. I think that's actually where the cornerstone is. And I think there are technologies, and there's a great effort, intellectual effort, and technology, like from technologists in Bitcoin, that are like, okay, how do we grow this thing? What kind of tools can we pull out of it so that we can construct self-custody schemes that let us bypass on-chain limits? Because fundamentally, it doesn't matter how on-chain you are, you're not going to be able to scale on-chain. I think that's sort of like at least a belief that I have, like an understanding that I have. Like we just can't have 8 billion people doing daily transactions on-chain. And so it doesn't matter. Like if you do, you end up with the nodes in like WS servers, and you have to like start pruning like crazy, right? And you end up with Ethereum basically, and nobody wants to be like Ethereum. Not even Ethereum people.
Not if you had 8 billion people using it, then you could be like Ethereum. But with 8 billion people using it, could be worth it at that point.
I mean,
right?
I don't get it. Sorry, what did you mean by I don't understand?
I'm saying you don't want to be but you're saying in some scenario where you had 8 billion people trying to use a blockchain, it would become Ethereum. I'm saying, but yeah, if you have 8 billion people using it, then it might be worth being Ethereum at that point.
I mean, yeah, right? Fair enough. Maybe you might just
decentralized enough, right?
Yeah, you might just yeah, exactly. You might just be too big to fail, but yeah, exactly. So you wouldn't have, but I feel like that would erode the cypherpunk values. Like
Like, you don't have to tell me, bro. You don't have to tell me.
Yeah.
Let me just interject here. So I'm here with Juan Galt. He's going to be a speaker at Monerotopia. Super excited to meet him in person. We have 170 live viewers. Guys, keep liking and sharing. Let's get some new people in here. If you're from Juan's clan, hello, welcome to Monero Talk. Come down to Monerotopia, join us, guys. I haven't seen any Monero super chats yet today. Hold on, I'm going to put the link. xmrchat.com/Monero Talk. You guys can send a Monero super chat to that address, and I can bring it up. Yeah, Juan, we built this little tool. It's actually pretty cool. xmrchat.com. Do you live stream?
I do not.
If you ever do live stream, consider using xmrchat.com. You get super chats with Monero. Bring them up on screen. Works well with StreamYard. It's pretty cool. So let's get into. Oh, actually, give me more of your take on perhaps the potential need to add a tail emission to Bitcoin. I'm curious what your full take is on that. So like Peter Todd. I think is basically arguing for it, or saying that there needs to be some other solution, essentially like a demurrage, like a tax on everybody, like including like holders, right?
Yeah.
What is your feeling there?
My feeling is if Bitcoin cannot produce enough on-chain fees by 2140, when the last subsidy is produced, more or less. If Bitcoin doesn't have enough on-chain fees to sustain its own mining industry by that point, then it's failed, and let it fucking die. Like, it's failed, right? And so I think that's fine. Probably if that's the case, right? Like if we get to 2040 and there's 5 to 10 years of like no fees and the mining industry just collapsing, right? Assuming we make it that far, right? Then probably they would add a tail emission to try to save it, and there'd be like an airdrop, But my opinion is like, like right now people are like, again, we're talking about like how does Bitcoin work in a high fee environment, but the fees are like nothing right now. You know what I mean? So like, what are we even talking about, right? There's another side of the argument that's like, actually, how do we get the fees up? Because it's terrible. It's like 2 sats per VByte. So
you think Bitcoin will be fine scaling? You won't need a tail emission.
I think that if oh, sorry, I'm hearing an ad. Okay, so yeah, I think if Bitcoin doesn't manage to get a high enough and reliable enough amount of fee rewards on the other side of that, then it's failed. And so I guess we'll have to
forecast. But so do you see there being an issue though? Like what we were talking about with the fact that it does have a fixed block size, so you're competing for block space. So that transaction fees will have to go up on the base layer, right?
Yeah, as more people, like the economic design is that we want the fees to go up on the base layer. I think that's the security assumptions require that. Like we need them to go up over time. We have 100 years, 120 years, but they have to go up. We'll probably need them to go up before that. We'll probably need them to go up probably in like a couple of halvings or something like that, because unless the price continues to go up in such a way that the diminishing BTC denominated fees sort of get kind of like valued higher because the price is higher, right? You know what I mean? Like if the price continues to go up, then you can get less fees in net, and that can subsidize the mining industry. But if the price stabilizes or something like that, right? Like we get, let's say 35% of global monetary adoption, right? Bitcoin is, I don't know, $5 million a coin, right? And at that point, like in 20 years, 30 years, right? At that point, the mining rewards, like they have to sort of, like the fees have to end up subsidizing eventually the mining industry in order to maintain, and they have to subsidize probably more than like half or maybe more than 40% of the current hashing power in order to keep the same security assumptions. I think there's probably both sides of the argument there, but like you don't need 100% of the hashing power right now. You need like 50% or 60%, right? Something like that, right? I don't know. I think we need fees to go up. That's the reality. And like if we do, like maybe you do end up at a point where people are like, you know what, like do an emission hard fork. There's gonna be a civil war over that, guaranteed, right? And then you're gonna end up with two coins, right? And then the question is which one survives, right? And maybe emission coin survives because maybe Peter Todd is right, you know. But I just think that if we can't get a reliable enough amount of high fees into the network on chain in 100 years, then what are we doing? I think we failed. I think we've ended up building around it, and we're back in centralized systems that don't need proof of work, and therefore nobody's paying on chain. You know what I mean? So I don't worry about it. I don't lose sleep over it, basically.
Interesting. Yeah. So what would you say the likelihood is that Bitcoin adds a tail emission?
Zero.
Are you zero?
Not in my lifetime. I don't see it happening. I think we would have to have like a catastrophic like.
So do you think Peter Todd like thinks there's an actual? You think he's just kind of being exaggerating? Because it seems like he's pretty adamant about it being an issue.
Yeah, I think
he is Satoshi Nakamoto, so
that's tough.
Might want to listen to him.
Disagreeing with Satoshi's. He don't do it lightly, but no, I think he's doing his job as a contrarian. Like his job is to make the arguments that nobody else dares to make, you know, and he sort of self-adopted that job. And so I think it's like, yeah, of course Peter Todd would make that argument. And I think it's an argument that merits a conversation. I think his argument about like introducing a state change 150 years into a protocol is a bad idea. I get that. That makes sense. But I don't think you get that kind of change without like a catastrophic, like existential crisis, you know? And I don't see that crisis if we just get enough on-chain adoption, right? Like we've had moments in recent history where the fee rake is higher than the emission during like, you know, JPEG frenzies, right? And so if we can get the world to adopt Bitcoin on chain as like a settlement layer, right? Like basically if we can replace Swift or something like that, right? Like if the BRICS nations actually like started using Bitcoin, which apparently allegedly they're saying like, hey, maybe we should use Bitcoin to settle trade. If they actually did, maybe we start getting higher fees, right? And reliably higher fees, right? But I think, you know, I think that's the game plan, you know. I think we have bigger problems too. I think that yeah, I think we have bigger problems in a way, but yeah, we just need to get higher fees, and we get that through adoption, you know, and we get that through adoption of like bigger players and such. I don't know.
I think that's definitely a reasonable take, right? And it seems like the more likely there for Bitcoin itself. Like you said, I think Monero is the tail emission option, right? So we'll see how how that does.
Yeah, and I think it's a reasonable argument for Monero to do that. And I think you know, I get that argument, especially since it's like a fractional tail emission, right? Or no, you guys are doing, you just have like a steady emission forever, right?
Yeah. So basically, the inflation rate trends towards zero, right? Continuously approaches zero.
But it's a fixed amount, right? So the supply
it's a fixed amount. So but the actual inflation percentage goes down over time, right? Because it's a fixed number over a larger and larger number, right?
Right, makes sense. So is it like a specific number of Moneros that get mined per block? Like a
yeah, I forget what the amount is. Right, yeah, I forget what the settled final amount is. Yeah.
I think it's a very elegant solution. I think it's very elegant design.
Is it 6 minutes? I don't remember. Doesn't matter, right? It's just the number is a number. But yeah, it's steady. It's a steady
right,
amount.
Which because the supply grows, it becomes an increasingly smaller percentage of the
exactly.
That's very cool. I think it's very smart. I do think that, like, I think it's very obvious to recognize Satoshi Nakamoto was not a Bitcoin maximalist. Satoshi Nakamoto injected Namecoin into the default proof of work software so that Bitcoin miners would merge mine Namecoin. And he said, well, DNS on top of Bitcoin might just be much stuff, so let it have its own chain and let it have its own fate. These are the words of Satoshi Nakamoto, aka
Peter Todd, man. Right? Peter Todd loves that Namecoin.
Peter Todd, baby. So
that is true. And I mean, and Satoshi Nakamoto also, he talked about ring signatures, he talked about stealth addresses, all these,
and he liked them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, oh, this is cool. Yeah. But like the technology just wasn't available, right? If Satoshi knew what we know now, he might have built Bitcoin in a different way, Yeah. So we don't know, but I think.
Let me get this. Snoopy tipped $1. Does Juan share the goal of separation of money and state? How does heavy focus on an easily taxed store of value help that?
So, I mean, you're not going to get, like, this is, yes, I share the value, first of all, definitely. In fact, I'm on HBO talking about how Bitcoin is sort of an answer.
Right, this goes back to the co-op question. How can you separate money from state in a situation where everybody's perfectly potentially surveilled, right? Those that are using Bitcoin the way most do on Coinbase, whatnot, and they can effectively be perfectly taxed.
Yeah.
How have we separated money from state at that point?
Well, I think the taxation question is it's an interesting question, because most people are going to be compliant, because most people don't have this sort of radical not in a bad way, but they don't have this sort of stamina and let's say disagreeable personality to like take the risks involved to go against their government, And so most people are just going to be compliant.
Are you referring to me right now? Is that what you're...
Pretty much. You and Monero chat guy,
So like, you're not that guy? You're not a Monero chat? Come on, man. No,
I'm a very compliant person, sir. No, but like I just I think it's a sort of utopian idea that you're going to get, everybody using like hardcore cypherpunk money to like avoid taxes, right? Like you're good. What you could end up with is a population that is politically aware enough of the brutal theft that is taxation that they will change their government one way or another, such that those taxes go down. But like,
you don't think. Yeah, I mean you want for it to be like perfectly kind of custodial, it needs to be built in a way where when the government comes to extract their pound of flesh, they can't easily take it away. And obviously the fear is some totalitarian situation, right, where everybody's really being tracked and traced. They're taxing unrealized capital gains. In that situation, this is a potential scenario in the future, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. There's the learning curve required to sort of trade crypto, not just Bitcoin, like Monero as well. It's probably harder with Monero to trade any of this stuff in a peer-to-peer basis without dodging the surveillance state, right? And getting cash out without using the banking system. It's pretty high. Like that's like ninja level shit, You kind of have to like be pretty good at it. You have to like be paranoid enough. You have to make sure you know how to, control your risk and identify the scammers and play within a network of trust. And then, you know what I mean? Like there's an OPSEC sort of learning curve to be able to move, crypto for cash, right? And if you're using a banking system at all, then to trade, then like you're screwed. So now if you're moving Monero to Monero, if you're paying your bills in Monero, if you're doing everything Monero, great. But I think again, like the question there is, how have we been trying to get that kind of circular economy going for 15 years and not managed to get that far, right? And I think
that gets back to the dark market argument, right? Like so like Monero seems to be beating Bitcoin for for those purposes. And then the question is, well, how large does that market go into the clear market, right? I think is kind of the bigger question.
I mean, I think that the use case of Monero within the dark markets, and I'll take you at your word because I don't go in the dark market very often. Like,
yeah, who does?
There, nobody, right? Yeah. Who does, right?
I pay my taxes, dude. Stop accusing me of things, all right? I pay my taxes, and I don't go in the dark market. Jesus, this guy.
Exactly, right? We're all, but so like I'll take your word for it. But like, obviously, there's a use case in the dark market, which is like. Very hostile environment. Right?
It was the first use case of Bitcoin. The Silk Road was the first app. It was the first company. It was the first actual use case. Right.
So, are you stating, as a matter of fact, that the majority of dollar-denominated volume in the dark markets is traded in Monero?
We're gonna have a speaker speaking at it at Monerotopia. He's spoken on in the past, like for the past 2 years. He gives a good analysis on. What he sees as being the current level of adoption of Monero in the dark markets. But my understanding is it's a significant, it's, I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out there, like 70% perhaps of the transactions taking place. It's a large chunk.
And I think that is a testament to Bitcoiner developers, or like not bad, but like the Bitcoin world's failure to sort of bring better privacy to Bitcoin. I think that's definitely the case. I think there's kind of like there's people don't want to break the thing, and so whatever, or maybe core has been co-opted. I think certainly we could do better analysis, like data analysis on how Bitcoin Core works and what they're prioritizing. Right. I think that there's sort of questions there, but I think it's a testament to Monero's strength that it is the case that a lot of the darknet activity happens there. I think it's a testament to Monero that the IRS is putting bounties on people that can break Monero, and nobody seems to be able to do it, or that it's getting like run out of exchanges, right? Clearly the privacy works, otherwise they wouldn't care, right? Otherwise they do it with Zcash, but they don't do it with Zcash because it's Zcash, right? Like it's it's pretend privacy, right? Like the privacy is like within
they don't seem to be threatened by it, right? For whatever reason, they're not threatened by it. So there's obviously something there. I mean, we know that Zcash integrates with these exchanges, right? It created addresses just for the purposes of integrating with exchanges so they can be compliant. I mean,
that's right. They didn't have to do it. And there's actually like a fork of Zcash, which is funny. I think it was called like, it had like a really racist name. Can't remember what it was called.
Well, there's Pirate Chain. Pirate Chain is basically a default private Zcash.
Right. There's that one too. So they didn't have to do transparent transactions, right? And so Zcash is a grift. It's a grift for academics. So they can build better cryptography. And maybe it's paid off. Maybe it's
it's a strange beast, right? Peter Todd was involved in that one too, man. I don't know, bro.
Everywhere, bro.
Trust lost when he started, participating in the Zcash ceremony. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that it's the way they started it, and it had the trusted setup, but it was experimental math at the time. Obviously, they've invented some really interesting tech. Yeah. And now Monero is now essentially adopting a version of that. It is its own, developed its own unique thing by Luke Parker, but the same concept of, zero knowledge, right? I mean, there's already other zero knowledge aspects of Monero too. There's always that confusion. They're like, well, Zcash is zero knowledge and Monero, Monero has zero knowledge elements built into it.
Right.
Parts of its tech, but now I don't know if you've been keeping up with it, but we're implementing full chain membership proofs.
That's fucking cool. Did that happen already? Like, has it been merged or
no? Hasn't been merged yet. Luke Parker will be there. He'll be giving an update on it. It's like, do you know Luke Parker? Have you been?
I've heard of Luke Parker. Yeah.
Oh my god, phenom. So. There's always been this talk of upgrading the amount of decoys in Monero ring signatures, right? The need to constantly kind of upgrade so that we can make that anonymity set larger.
More than 10 per ring, right?
Right now it's at 16. And so, I mean, it is like statistically, it's pretty freaking good, right? Like there are attacks that theoretically can be done and arguably have been done by chain analysis companies. If there's like pinpointed attacks where they can, essentially get data from exchanges that you're interfacing with, plus making you like mini transactions that could essentially, potentially, probabilistically, not deterministically, trace a transaction, determine who a sender might have been of a transaction. And so there is that flaw, and Monero now, with the implementation of full chain membership proofs, will eliminate that flaw. And that's kind of been the one argument of Monero versus Zcash, is that technical flaw that Monero has. So that goes away soon, which is going to be really exciting. I mean, unless like the tech something, Luke forgot to carry a 1 or something.
I don't know if
we're all screwed, but supposedly he's a freaking genius. So
yeah, he better be.
We'll see what Satoshi Nakamoto, Peter Todd, has to say.
Yeah, we'll have Peter review it and give its blessing. I mean Peter.
Dude, super excited.
I think it's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited that you're coming down to Monerotopia, and you'll be bringing your very educated Bitcoin maximalism, right? And your cypherpunk values, right? I see it as a Venn diagram, right? And there's definitely, like you said, we're all working to build the same tools here. Just we see the design decisions as being different, and see the game theory as playing out differently. And obviously, Bitcoin's is the most, to date, the most valid theory we have, given what we're seeing it do. So super excited that you've chosen to hang out with us at Monerotopia, though, man. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. A bunch of my friends are gonna be there, and your lineup is very impressive. I mean, I like that Amir is going. Is that super confirmed that he's coming?
Yeah, super confirmed. Well, he was supposed to come last year, and then he got sick on the last day.
Right.
Rachel Rose came the first year in Miami. He's coming this year. Yeah, he's coming.
Yeah, so I hope to see Amir there.
They will definitely be there, because they felt bad about what happened last year. So it's
right.
I'd be very surprised if they didn't make it, and super excited to have them. I've been seeing them throughout the years, and like they're they create the philosophical ballast of the crypto anarchy ship for the right. Like when you listen to the way they speak and like the philosophical ideals, it kind of realigns people as to why we're doing the whole crypto thing in the first place. So super excited that they'll be there. I think they do an amazing job at that.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool lineup. I see a lot of friendly faces. A lot of I mean, I can't wait to meet up with you guys and hang out. And I like that it's got a real grassroots vibes. It's going to be at a market, an actual market, and able to buy. It's
definitely not a Bitcoin con. It's definitely not. No, Michael Saylor will not be in attendance. It's not $1,000 a ticket, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm gonna quickly play the ad right now, and actually, if you can stick around a little bit, let's see if we can get anybody else to send a super chat question or just any form of question for Juan, and we'll ask
a Super Monero chat, right?
Yes. Here we go.
Are you interested in privacy, freedom, technology, and Monero? Come to the conference that has it all, Monerotopia 2024. Join us in our world class of Cypherpunk speakers to discuss all things freedom. Engage in the Monero circular economy. Go shopping at the open-air Monero marketplace. Join a workshop. Enter a hackathon. Opt out of dystopia and into Monerotopia at Huerto Roma Verde, Mexico City, Mexico, November 14th through 17th. For only one easy payment of $89 for general admission, or get the VIP ticket for one easy payment of $249, payable in Monero, and enjoy discounted drinks at the bar and dinner with the speakers. Get your tickets now while supplies last. This deal won't last forever. Get your tickets now at Monerotopia.com. Enter promo code 1-800-MONEROTOPIA to get 10% off your order.
All right. I don't get sick of that. Untraceable. It's like mesmerizing, right? Untraceable made that for us.
That's very
good.
It
was a throwback to the 90s there. Yeah. We've since added... Go ahead.
I gotta say the Monero Chan is also one of the best marketing moves you guys have made in a while.
Yeah,
the anime girl.
A good one. It is a good one. Foodie tip 50 cents. Will there be any food and drink vendors at Monerotopia? I will be hungry. Yeah, of course there will be food and drink vendors, and they'll be accepting Monero. They'll be accepting Monero. I recommend if you do holiday shopping, bring down Monero for holiday shopping. There's like the vendors are really awesome. There's some good ones. All sorts of things, all sorts of products.
Yeah,
I'm psychedelics that you grow in the ground. I think all
medical psychedelics.
Yeah, of course, all legal things. Yeah,
cool. Can I shill something?
Of course, man.
Yeah,
you've been shilling Bitcoin this entire time. I mean, what are you?
That's what we do, you know. You just grab a bag and you shill it, you know. So right after the conference, right after Monerotopia, I'm gonna go to Guadalajara, and there's like a really hard Bitcoin maximalist community there, but they're like builders, they're like developers. So there's Chris Guida, Super Testnet is hanging out there, which I know has made some flashes around the Monero world. We're gonna have a hackathon. This is like the end of November, beginning of December. We're gonna do a hackathon. There's like $7,000 on the line. And there's people coming from the United States. It's in collaboration with Pleb Labs, HRF threw money in, and we're doing a hackathon. It's on the website is hackalahara.xyz. So it's like Guadalajara, but you're replacing with hack, you know, Hackalahara. And we're gonna do a hackathon. We're gonna fucking try to build some stuff. So if you are a builder and you like money, you might enjoy hackalahara.xyz. Join us.
I love it. Very cool. Yeah, we I might as well shill our hackathon. Actually, we're doing one based on BTC Pay Server, which you might find interesting, right? So to improve Monero integration, currently Monero is integrated, but I guess my understanding is they just updated BTC Pay Server, so to make sure Monero can stay up to date. And so it's cool because they're just focused on that. So the hope is by the end of it, we actually have some new useful improvement rather than just making it some general hackathon of everybody try to, build something Monero, right?
Right.
So that should be cool. Yeah. If anybody who's hearing and is interested in participating, email us monerotopia@protonmail.com. We have a hacker house for it. We have a prize too, not as generous. We have a $1,500 prize, I think is what we have, but it's Monerotopia after all. We're a little more humble at Monerotopia now. But we do have the hacker house, guys. I think we have That's one spot left for people that want to stay there. But even if you're just local to Mexico and you want to participate, please reach out. Monerotopia.
And this is happening during the conference?
This is happening during the conference. We only have I think 4 people that are actively or I know I think we have more because some people are virtually participating. So there's maybe a group of 8 right now that are going to be participating on this project. It's more of a build-a-thon, right? They're going to be working together to build one project on BTC Pay Server. So
that's awesome. Yeah, BTC
Pay
Server is good. It's the kind of thing merchants need. They need an accounting system, an invoicing system, all those things. Yeah.
We got, but your conference or your hackathon sounds awesome, man, and I'm loving the name. Kind of gives me, like Anarcho Poco, right? Or right, it's good branding. Good branding.
Yeah, I Super Testnet I think came up with that. He's crazy good with fonts and names and stuff.
That's awesome. What was the controversy with Super Testnet? Honestly, I think
he just started making arguments against Monero, and I didn't follow it because to me it's just funny, right? Every time my friends start arguing about Monero, I'm just like, just gonna grab some popcorn and like not, let them fight it out.
I love that you hang out with Body and talk Monero. Like I said, you've gone down as deep of the rabbit hole as you possibly can on Monero if you're talking to Body. So
we've been sparring about it for like 5 years.
Stacy tipped $1. What is there to build on Bitcoin? They always reject changes. Thank you for the tip, Stacy, and thank you for the hard but true question.
We're getting stealth addresses integrated. In fact, Cake Wallet has it, and
okay.
We also got encrypted P2P networking stuff in recently. So we're making we're doing it the slow way, bro. It's just like 1 inch at a time. But
that is true. That is true. Yeah, thank you to Cake Wallet, by the way. They're one of our main stage sponsors. It's 3rd year in a row they're being a main stage sponsor. Super awesome. Cake is fantastic in the community. Yeah, I think they've really they've really earned the respect of Bitcoiners, right? With being the first to implement stealth addresses for Bitcoin. That's like damn, Vic, why do you don't have to help the Bitcoiners out that much? Come on, man. Like
love it.
I love it though. No, like we're saying, like bringing everybody into the same tent. Cake Wallet is literally like the tent right now. They're bringing everybody that's kind of privacy minded to the same app, which is very cool.
Yeah, it's true.
Guess who our second main stage sponsors? You're gonna find this to be, if you haven't already seen.
Jeff Berwick.
He'll be a speaker.
He'll be a speaker.
Okay. But yeah, guess who our second main stage sponsors? You would never think they would sponsor Bitmain. We got Bitmain.
Oh yeah, a sponsor, right? Bitmain.
Yeah,
that's
which is a topic. One final topic I want to talk to you about is ASIC resistance and whatnot. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think about that? That's kind of interesting.
How did that happen?
They reached out. They tried sponsoring last year too, and we were in talks. We were in conversation. I felt like we were always talking to the marketing side of the company and never super tech side. We were like, yeah, sure. Like, we'd love to have you guys. And we're like, just so you know, Monero is like supposed to be ASIC resistant, is literally trying to build technology that doesn't allow you guys to build ASICs. They're like, no, we're well aware of it. I was like, all right, like you guys have to come to the conference and sponsor. I mean,
that's
would love to hear your talk and can't wait to see the hands go up, like when Arctic Mine is asking about. Wait a minute.
Very strange, right? I'm curious. Maybe their marketing department just needs to like get their brand out there.
Yeah, I mean they're saying they like that it's a proof, a true proof of work coin, crypto, and it always will be. And so I guess they are looking to build. I mean, they have built things in the past for Monero, right? They attempted to build an ASIC, which really just like an efficient, pairing of CPUs, but that might be a business enough for them, or maybe there's something they know that we don't, right? Which could even be more exciting.
Yeah, no, I think I mean that's cool. I think I like ASIC resistance. I think ASIC resistance is good. I don't think that ASIC proof of work is inherently flawed or anything. I think that so far so good, you could argue, but there's definitely issues in Bitcoin mining. Like arguably it's like there's like a bunch of proxy mining pools that turns out are actually mostly ant miners. So it's like
so what do you think of like this idea that, once again, getting back to the co-opting, can the Bitcoin network be co-opted because it's being mined primarily by a small handful of companies that are that are listed on the stock exchange, that have to follow regulations, that are a door knock or a letter away from any government office that may want to mandate something, and they'll have the incentive to work with said agency because they essentially have a monopoly in the business of mining Bitcoin. Do you see that as a problem in Bitcoin's mining industry?
Yeah, so let's deal with this. So first of all, I'm sure
Body has asked you about this one.
Oh, we've yeah, this is a good one. So first of all, if the US government and the Chinese government come together to try to destroy anything in the world, they'll probably win. It doesn't matter how decentralized you are; they can probably rake through the population and fucking delete us, right? So like, if both China and the United States decide we're gonna come together to censor Bitcoin transactions at our leisure, there's probably not much we can do. Russia might be able to like play ball, but if China and the US join forces to destroy Russia, Russia fails, right? And I think that's the case for everything. In fact, if you ever watched the Firefly TV show, remember that one from like ABC in like the 90s, late 90s, Firefly? Oh,
I don't remember that. Great
show. It's like cowboy anarchists in space. It's fantastic.
Oh shit.
Cult classic, one season and they got canceled because they were too good, Their story plays out in a universe where China and Russia joined forces and took over the world. Sorry, China and the United States joined forces and took over the world. And then so people like speak English, but they curse in Chinese, which is great. And so anyway, I think that's the first piece. Like, there's a threat model here that nobody can defeat, and it's like the two biggest governments. Okay, great. Aside from that, right? If China and the US are not seeing eye to eye, which I think we're seeing with BRICS, if we're going towards a bipolar world, then and enough hashing power is outside of the US, then who is the US going to try to censor? Well, they're going to try to censor Russian transactions and Chinese transactions. They're going to try to censor through through tariffs and sanctions, because that's actually what they care about. All this money laundering stuff is bullshit. Like, they care about sanctions, right? And they want their piece of the pie. They want their surveillance grid, and they want sanctions, because it's a weapon of, like, surveillance finance is a weapon of war in a geopolitical game, and they can exert pressure on foreign nations by enforcing sanctions, right? And so if you have anonymous money, you get sanction resistant money, and so they don't like that. And so the US might try to use Bitcoin mining corporations that are public in the stock exchange to censor Bitcoin transactions. But if there's enough hash rate in China and Russia, then you just wait an extra block or two and the transaction gets in. And if the American Bitcoin sort of corporate, whatever, they decide to fork Bitcoin and break it, they're going to just give us a free airdrop, and now we'll take it. You will dump it in the markets. And if they try to, you know what I mean? Like, this is a war that they probably lose.
Yeah. But doesn't it just break then as a censorship resistant tool? Like, so like, let's say it's for there's political activity happening. People are assembling online. They believe in some cause. They're minority in some way in a totalitarian government, maybe even the United States, and they're trying to assemble, and they want to use Bitcoin for purposes of fundraising, and now they could effectively get censored potentially with Bitcoin. Like, does that then become, that for me, that's the dire scenario, right? Like, now it's no longer working as intended. It's to be this like tool of liberty and free speech, like censorship resistant money.
So if the United States has 51% of the hashing power within the United States,
like even with the Canada thing, right? So like it could be a combination of attacks, right? Like, okay. But
so if the NATO alliance has 51% of hashing power, right? And they can keep consistently 51% of hashing power, then they would probably be able to cause problems, right? And I think that if the world goes into like two poles, right? Like just two poles, it's like,
Yeah, but we saw, right? Didn't we've seen like mining companies censoring, right? Like refusing to put
there's
transactions
into. So like there was an attempt at an OFA compliant pool, and and then there was like people started sending them, like, because the mining pools began, because Bitcoin is transparent enough, right? You can see their Bitcoin addresses of the mining pools floating around. People started sending them like money from Satoshis from Iran, and then they and blasting them on Twitter and like just making fun of them, and they rolled it back, right?
So how about like the Canada trucker rally, right? So slightly different. Like that wasn't really about mining, but it was same concept. Bitcoin potentially failing as a tool for censorship resistance.
So I mean, the Bitcoin that was raised for the truckers, something like 70% or maybe 50% of the Bitcoin, as far as I understand, did make it to miners. before the feds showed up at the house of one of the custodians, and they confiscated or like froze it or whatever, right? I don't know exactly how the story goes down, but there's two versions of the story. The story where Bitcoin failed, and the story where actually it was proof that it was great and powerful, right? Which is funny. There's there's two opposing narrative, two different worlds, right?
Obviously, right? Like with anything.
But like the way that it was transmitted, like you can, one of the guys that ended up in court over this, I think, they literally grabbed 100 envelopes. They put in, this was through, I think, Bull Bitcoin. I'm not sure. But they grabbed 100 envelopes, put paper wallets in them with very specific guides, and then just handed them out to truckers. That money got through. I mean, if they grabbed it and sweeped it and sent it to an exchange with their KYC data, they're idiots. But some definitely did that. But others probably didn't, right? So I think that the Bitcoin got in. You know, I personally like bought gift cards for gas for truckers.
Like
okay. So like there's 50 different ways to use it. You know what I mean? Like
even January 6th was another one. There were Bitcoin transactions involved. I forget the streamer's named, quite a popular political figure here in the US, fringe on the right. And his transaction were traced. There were donations made to him, like large Bitcoin donations that were made to him. And it was like in
Coinbase account. Listen, if people don't use the technology properly, I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, and I think, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
just saying, but these are the things that like Monero people, right, look at in terms of like where Bitcoin is failing.
Right. Yeah, it's failing because it's become too easy to use, you know. But if you have a hardware wallet, right? If you even fucking just have a burner phone, you download, I don't know, anywhere from Electrum to Green Wallet to fucking, I can give you 50 different wallets that you can use on a self-custodial basis offline that'll give you a Bitcoin address that you can post on the internet, and nobody's going to censor it. And then like I can give you 10 ways that you can mix it. You know, you can swap it for Monero and bring it back to Bitcoin later in different pieces, or move it through the Lightning Network and back, or go swap it atomically with Liquid Network Bitcoin and then swap it back, and that's going to get sort of moved through zero knowledge, right?
Go turn it into Monero and then just use it, right? Like,
I mean, if you want to just stay at $150 forever, that's you know.
Come on now, man. The network is growing, brother. It's growing. You're in our tent. Wait, we're in your tent. Whose tent are we in? Is it our tent?
So I don't know. I just think there's different tools, but yeah, like if people are just using Coinbase, like you're a fucking idiot. Yeah. Don't use Coinbase, right? So I don't know. I mean,
we're at almost an hour and a half. We got 250 live viewers. This has been amazing, man. Anything else you want to get out there? Obviously, you'll have the stage at Monerotopia. But any other info you want to get out right now to the
it's fun. Looking forward to it. I hope to see a lot of my Bitcoin Cash frenemies there, among many other Monero.
Anarcho Poco crowd will be there, right? I think you have some friends in that sphere, right?
Yeah. No, and definitely some anarchists that I know from the scene. So I'm looking forward to meeting them. Looking forward to the speech. It's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna craft something special for you guys, and
awesome.
And like can't wait. So catch you guys there, and then see you guys there. Fuck it.
Let me ask you though. Actually, you got me thinking. What do you think the panel should be? Obviously, I have some thoughts.
But do a panel.
Yeah, I'm thinking 1 or 2 panels. I was thinking maybe like scaling Bitcoin versus scaling Monero, or just kind of like the concept of scaling, and I could get you up on that panel.
I think a better
discussion.
Question. I think all that stuff has sort of been played out already. You know, like I don't know if we need to be debating which one's better. I think we both
just talking about the concepts. But go ahead. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, like maybe something a little bit more cooperative. So like, how do we build better peer-to-peer atomic swap tools or something? How do we make Monero dependent of fiat exchanges, right? Like if Bitcoin is the Trojan horse that's sort of like selling out a little bit so we get the gold, right? Let's say that that's the case. How do we bootstrap like a decentralized sort of market between Monero and Bitcoin so that you guys don't need exchanges, right? Like if you guys are the hard anonymous money, you're going to need access to the fucking walled garden money, right? And so like, how do we build that? Or what are the adoption barriers that we're failing to solve 15 years deep into this experiment, right? So like an adoption panel would be fun. how do we adopt? What are we not seeing, right? And then a peer-to-peer technology stuff would be great, because I would love to see like an atomic swap, like not just like a centralized sort of server client atomic swap system. I would like to see like a BitTorrent, like,
well, there is
peer-to-peer,
for one, there's basic swap. They'll be there. They
Right.
are that actually.
Yeah,
They are,
and you got to run both nodes, and it's fucking
yeah, but just so we could have them. We could have them on the panel, and Luke Parker. I'm sure are you familiar with Sarai Dex?
No.
So hasn't launched yet. But in addition to working on full chain membership proofs, he's also the lead dev of Sarai Dex, which is almost ready to launch. And it's basically like a Thor chain, but Monero based.
Gotcha.
So it's going to allow for seamless exchange between Monero and a handful of other cryptos like Bitcoin through these liquidity pools, and built in a way where wallets like Cake Wallet can interface with it. So it will feel like an instant exchange that's centralized, but will be like similar to a Thor chain. It's in its level of decentralization. So that's an exciting one.
Yeah. I think those are the topics, right? Like we got to build into adoption. Yeah. We got to build into P2P technology.
Awesome. All right. So I'm writing those two down. We'll see. Those are definitely, I will consider those. I probably will do at least one of those. And like proof of work versus proof of stake. We did that last year. I guess is not much more to say on the topic, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Ethereum implemented proof of stake at the top of the market, and they've been crashing ever since. So,
only reason I like that one is because we have Xano. Are you familiar with Xano? Xano will be there.
No.
They're doing some really interesting things.
Is it a blockchain?
It's its own crypto. It's basically the guy who built it is also the guy who built the first implementation of Monero. He's like the original Monero coder.
So it's like, and he built proof of stake Monero.
It's a hybrid proof of work and proof of stake, and they invented a way to do basically anonymous private proof of stake, and they did that in collaboration with some other Monero devs or Monero devs.
That's interesting. I think hybrids are interesting. I think there's something to be said for that.
All right, brother, I will let you go. I really greatly appreciate your time and allowing me to ask you probably some of the questions you're tired of being asked or discussing, right? Kind of like if you're talking to Body, I can only imagine. So I feel bad for you, brother. But thank you for doing it publicly. At least we're not Body, right? A body debate would be way more exhausting. He would definitely.
He has like I've never met anybody with so much stamina to debate. Like he just.
Yeah, he's a genius, man. He's
sharp. Yeah.
Very sharp dude.
Yeah. Chess too. Challenge him at chess. Somebody needs to beat him.
Oh, I can imagine. I gotta start playing some chess. All right, brother. We'll leave it at that. Super excited to see you down at Monerotopia. If you can, spread the word to your people. Get the word out.
I'll try to get the word out next week. Yeah.
Do it in Spanish, man. Trying to get the word out locally in Mexico City. If you have any thoughts on how to get the word out locally in Mexico City, because it's basically free for locals to attend. And then we asked them to pay like only 500 pesos if they want to come into the dome, but just to come out, attend. They could see the talks outside. They can engage with the different tables, like the Monero 101 table, right? So they basically come in for free. So just trying to get the word out, and the idea being to help grow adoption, right? I want to make it as accessible as possible to like locals that are interested in learning these topics.
Okay. So I'll do a Spanish video and I'll do an English video, and I'll reach out to some of my friends. Send me like press release stuff, whatever you got.
Okay.
I'll pump it.
Awesome, man. Greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you soon.
See you guys soon.
Later, man.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Ciao.
Hi, Moneroland. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode. We release new episodes every week. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Odyssey, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Go to monerotalk.live for a full list of places where you can watch and listen. If you want to interact with us, guests, or other podcast listeners, you can follow us on Twitter, Mastodon, or any of our social media platforms. Monero Talk is also made possible from contributions by viewers and listeners like you, and supporting us is easier than ever by typing in monerotalk.crypto in your Monero.com or Cake Wallet send address field to send us a tip. Once again, thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to being back next week.